So that you're outsourcing a lot of your services to a multitude of cloud providers. Is that right?
Cloud transformation is not easy. So a lot of organizations, what they don't do is a due diligence.
What are the common challenges organizations face during cloud transformation, especially related to legacy systems? Give us your view.
Guys, good evening and welcome. Episode we've forgotten, so it's
Season 2.
Is it season 2? We think 3. 2.5.
No, it's definitely season 2.
Definitely season 2. Season 2, yes. Episode we forgot. Doesn't matter, but
the producer's saying 4 in my ear. He's not in my ear, actually, he's there.
Well, hopefully he'll go to sleep at one point and we can carry on. But welcome back to the Infomatters Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone.
Season 2. Danny is here this evening, and of course he will give us the business.
Yeah,
of the podcast.
welcome. We've noticed that there's been a spike in viewers. I know it's me, you don't need to worry about it. Thank you to newcomers, thank you to Wold. Welcome to Infomatterspodcast.com. Got it right.
Yay!
As is tradition on Season 2, there are gifts. So, Khalid said to be serious. So, you have a child skipping rope to keep fit.
I don't know.
They do say that when you're sat in front of your PC working all the time, you should have short breaks. Okay. And there's your lunch. It's a chicken wing.
But I am a vegetarian.
It's not real.
Okay.
Okay, well, there you go. If you want to win the chicken drummer, just like and subscribe down below. As you know, Infomatters Podcast is sponsored, produced and powered by Xtelligence.com. All the roles will be flashing up in the bar below. This week, we're currently looking for an AWS architect. So for those of you out there, Amazon Web Services, we're looking for you. If you like the show, if you don't like it, you're not going to watch this. Please forward to your friends, colleagues, family. Your grandma might enjoy it with a cup of tea and a biscuit. On that note, over to Kenny. We're going to introduce our new guest. And do we know him?
Oh, no, it's kind of 50-50.
We've worked in the same company.
We have,
company.
So Sri, welcome. Good to see you. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you.
Always welcome.
Welcome on board, Vegetarian Sri.
Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. So while Danny launches the plastic chicken, literally our producer.
What's the topic today, Kenny?
So we're going to talk about a number of things. As if cloud wasn't famous enough, we're going to talk a little bit about. I think based on recent experience and assignments, moving cloud or moving to the cloud, moving back. Did we say? To on-prem or separation, how do you operate these things? But Sri, if you'd care to introduce yourself to our beloved audience, we'll start with the questions. Yeah?
Thank you.
That's it, you're done. Right, we'll carry on. No, sorry, go on, Sri.
Happy to be here, and I would like to shortly introduce before we start off.
Of course.
I am IT director working with Deutsche Börse now. My expertise is cloud infrastructure and security. Prior to Deutsche Börse, I was working for Novartis, and prior to Novartis, I was working for Accenture. So the list goes on. I wouldn't stretch it much, but stop.
It sounds like you might be his same.
Actually, should we ask him to provide his high school certification?
Exactly.
That was a shout out to Cognizant.
I told you it would come to the surface. I didn't have the best experience today because apparently I have to prove I went to college in 1946 because it's important after my 30-year career that I do that. Cheers.
So the topic today, we've got cloud transformation. So for those out there, first, could you explain what are the environments in the cloud and what transformation means to you and your organization?
So essentially what organizations worldwide are doing now is what is called digital transformation.
Yep.
So while digital transformation means a lot, an important part of that is cloud transformation. So what they do to simplify it is that they have their infrastructure, applications and so on in a traditional data center or what is called on-premise. On-premise. So what we do by doing this transformation is move our workloads, our application infrastructure and so on to cloud. Means that we move it to, there are various aspects.
For those out there, it doesn't go into a cloud.
Yeah,
exactly.
So what I know,
it's a hosted data center.
I always take my kind of mother as the default knowledge level.
Hi, Beryl.
That doesn't mean. That means to a data center owned by
someone
Amazon,
else.
Microsoft, all that kind of stuff. So.
Exactly.
So you'd normally own the services on servers and infrastructure in your own data center. No, you're buying services from someone else that owns the infrastructure.
Yeah. Exactly. So we move our infrastructure to someone else, and we call it cloud. Because it is operated by AWS, Google, Azure, and so on. And there can be private clouds, but we are talking more of these. So we move it to someone, and we consume those services from there. So this is what essentially
and in financial
solutions essentially.
Software as a service, and you move from owning the services and managing them to renting them and consuming them.
Exactly.
It means that, and the benefits there are somebody else assumes the responsibility for a lot of the operations, and you consume that as a kind of end user, if you like.
Correct. So there can be various ways, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. But in the end, it is what you said. We are consumers of the service. We pay them for whatever services we seek.
But why? Why not keep it in-house from a security aspect, a management aspect, a hands-on aspect? Why give it to someone else?
So there are multiple factors why we can do it.
Yep.
One of the most important is scalability and flexibility.
Okay.
So data center environments typically are very less scalable and flexible.
Yep.
By going to cloud, you have a whole set of services that you can get at your fingertips. You just click a button and you can.
You mean
get
expandability, all that kind of stuff that
Exactly.
you wouldn't have internally.
Correct.
Spin up as
For
many
example,
VMs.
I want to
that
launch
stuff,
an
yeah.
application.
Yeah.
It may take me 2 or 3 months if it's a large application.
It still does with SaaS, trust me.
it's-
I'm doing it now.
Exactly.
But I know what you mean, Sri.
Exactly. So if you go to Amazon, go to Azure, and so on,
Yeah.
you have all your services you can seek at your fingertips. So you can move quite fast.
They're always at the
launch it in a week.
fingertips, but they're never quite at your fingertips. And by that I mean, if I believe all the marketing that I see from all the same vendors, if I point and click and I can expand and have 10 or 10,000, it's not quite
Depends
what
on
we
your
see.
SLA, depends on your
Well,
agreement.
it does, but
Because you're
but it's
scalable
never-
up to a point your professional services go, you didn't pay for that.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't pay for And then it's about as flexible as my granny getting out of bed.
or we don't have the
deliver grand.
resource
True.
to support X million or X thousand or X tens, right? And therefore it all stops. So I get the prospect of how this can operationally work, and I realise this evening it's not for you to explain, but it's not always the experience. A lot of companies perceive, and I've just remembered, Google 37 Signals move from the cloud back on-prem. There was the CEO of I followed this story for quite a long time, proved that the financial benefits of the cloud actually fail. And it was quite an interesting story. Now, for the enterprise of which we work in, that might not well be the case, but there was an interesting story. I have to find the link.
So how it evolved over time.
Yeah.
So we were traditionally data center on-prem.
Yeah.
Cloud came in. People thought that moving to cloud makes sense. There was a lot of hoo-ha over it.
Yeah.
And
My favorite word, hoo-ha. Yeah.
And it so happened that some organizations decided to move 100% to cloud.
Yeah.
And completely evacuated their data centers, sustainability and whatnot, and they showed some figures. But eventually now the industry is moving towards hybrid.
Yeah.
A mix of hybrid.
So basically, instead of having MFT supplier, you're moving an SFTP on-prem solution that will manage your middleware between an A and a B, a source and a target
Sounds
application.
like you've done this before.
That's what I'm doing at the moment.
Aha!
And the wheels are spinning.
Correct.
Now you've got security. I get it. You can have so many more layers of security within someone else who's providing it at a lower cost.
Yeah.
But when something goes wrong,
Exactly.
you're relying on everybody.
True.
So
True.
that's
Right.
here's my baby.
Yeah.
Don't
Exactly.
lose it.
It's
Exactly.
so that you're outsourcing a lot of your services to a multitude of cloud providers. Is that right?
I don't know. I mean, what's
Kind
your
of.
approach?
It could be depending on the mode that you choose.
Yeah.
So infrastructure as a service. So infrastructure is outsourced, but you own the rest. If it is software as a service, it is completely there, and you seek
The application
services.
level
So
as well.
you just consume. Got it.
Yeah.
And so, but the model, particularly, Danny, you were mentioning there.
Well, I mean, you'll know
is of
from
interest.
the environment you worked in Novartis. So did I.
Yeah.
So does Kenny.
Yeah.
Everything was on-prem. Everything was built,
True.
physically built in data centers. Now you move to a cloud scenario or an iPaaS scenario, which is managing everything, and you want to. At the moment, we're doing a transformation program where we're moving over applications from A to B, so Novartis to Sandoz.
Yeah.
But on-prem doesn't talk to SaaS. So now you need cross-company interfaces. So now you're taking another layer of build, another layer of cost and time to connect an on-prem to a SaaS or a cloud-based solution.
Correct.
So as we, with cloud transformations, you tend to find in organizations we've worked for, is that most of the application or the hardware infrastructure was built on premise. And now the trend has gone, as you're doing, transforming into iPaaS solutions or cloud-based solutions where everything's handed over.
True.
But within the same organization doing a split off, for example, on-prem can't talk to SaaS solutions. So you end up building cross-company interfaces, which has added another level into the mix of. It seemed great at the start, and you just mentioned Google are going back to.
Well, exactly, and Danny, you and I did all these years ago migrations. Coexistence is a bitch. I mean, you've got basically the as is and the to be scenario where you've got to try and bridge what you got in the middle, and building a lot of stuff that will eventually disappear means that ultimately you have a lot of interim cost, and it's always in the best interest of everything to try and keep that short. But therefore, transitioning can be a horrible experience.
Well, let's ask the question to Sri. So one of the questions are, what are the common challenges organizations face during cloud transformation, especially related to legacy systems? Give us your view.
So, see, cloud transformation is not easy. So, a lot of organizations, what they don't do is a due diligence.
Right.
They decide over the fly. It is going on. It shows good on their pages. It shows good for marketing and so on. But there is not a lot of due diligence that is done. Right. So what happens is that if it is not executed properly, it can impact the business a lot. If it is depending on the execution strategy.
Is there a couple of pitfalls that a lot of people or a lot of companies fall into? If a lack of due diligence exposes A, B, and C, what?
See, what could happen is that a wrongly patched, a wrongly planned cloud migration could impact your applications. There could be a huge downtime, for example.
Right.
And there could be huge costs. So sometimes costs are not calculated properly when you move. Cloud is what they say is that the total TCO is less, but if it is not planned properly, it can cost a huge. So, you will lose all the advantages that you were going for.
And you were mentioning cloud separation. Explain the cloud separation, a use case, because would you have two hosted clouds that you're separating? Is that explain that for us?
See, there are various kinds of separation. So one kind of separation is to have multiple cloud providers. Now, how it helps the organization? Let's assume there is an attack on a cloud provider.
So like a cyber attack,
cyber attack on a cloud service provider, and you are totally dependent on that. Now you are totally screwed. But if you have an alternate space, I prefer the term
fucked, but
if you have an alternate space, you could move your workloads from A to B and be secure.
But how being the pragmatic approach? So you have a number of providers as a cost scenario.
Yeah.
So you're talking about redundancy. If one goes down, you have a backup, same as you would in a data center. Yeah. You'd have your the disaster recovery.
Sure.
You don't say what if they both go down, but what are the difficulties with managing two providers? You've got two different SLAs, two different contracts, two different ways
from the cost of
not very
mirroring.
Easy. It is not very easy.
You do. You go back on premise.
Yeah.
Cloud.
That's why this is a taste of hybrid.
Sure.
Cloud separation is one taste of hybrid. So you have some of your data and your infrastructure within your control, within your data centers, some with A and some with B, let's say. So you have to manage more. But still, you are cost efficient because you can control what workload you want A, B, or C place.
Yeah.
You are more secure because you can choose your security between two providers.
Yeah.
And you can make the best of three. What you want depending
on. So you'd
have
booking.com in the cloud, but you'd have your domain controllers and your Active Directory on premise because that's your authentication system.
For sure. Which is basically what we know. But I always think that there's a tipping point in scale, whereupon it makes sense to have stuff in the cloud, but and everyone says, well, if you're just a consumer of the service, but you have to remember that resilience is key when you don't manage the infrastructure, because they manage a whole bunch of other services that may be prone to attack. That because they're prone to attack, you suffer as a byproduct.
True.
And so coexistency between, particularly in hybrid, and a hybrid model between on-prem and cloud, particularly two cloud providers, can get really expensive. How do you cost control that?
No, in fact, it can be a better choice. So let's assume you are dependent on one cloud service provider.
Yeah.
And you sign a long-term contract for, let's say, 5 years, 10 years. Mm-hmm. Now they have a customer-to-customer pricing. So if you are totally dependent, you are left at the hands of the cloud service provider, a single one. So if you have two,
and they call that vendor lock-in, right? Which is very rarely attractive.
Throw in a curveball at that, because we're talking challenges.
Yeah.
So if you have multi-hosted applications and infrastructure, how do you manage your data governance?
So
data dump, we're in there. We've done it seasons. We always data
dumps have always featured in our podcast.
It's been a few episodes since we thrown one in.
It has been until they featured, exactly. Sorry, Sriram, big pardon.
Can do this, don't worry.
So data governance is not easy here because there are.
Is any of this shit easy, Sri? Come on. we were told the cloud was supposed to be absolutely fantastic and all.
That's why we got jobs.
It gets easy, but not in the short term. In the long term. So what they call, the term is total cost of ownership.
Yeah, okay.
So essentially, when I was managing a data center account, service account long term back,
Yeah.
We came up with a proposal. So what we found out that over the span of next 5 years, I could reduce my resource spending by around 60 to 70%.
So a headcount.
By going on holiday and never coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or about
For
you?
many people.
Yeah, are you saying you can do the
Including
job
us.
of 50?
By AI, I'm going to say AI. We'll come to
And
AI.
has- and-
So I've got to ask.
There's
how?
no problem.
How?
So what happens, typically you are doing a lot of day-to-day work in the on-prem environment. You
Yeah.
know, you do a lot of configurations, you do
Yeah.
changes, you
Oh,
have hardware
see,
work
like
to do, you have life cycle,
vulnerability management, patching, all this sort
patching,
of stuff,
patching, one part
upgrading,
of it, exactly.
which can be more automated.
Which can be more automated.
Okay.
If you containerize your application, you can
Sure.
move between cloud service providers also quite easily.
Okay.
Day to day, there are no issues in the cloud as you face in the on-prem. So your incidents go from go out down up to 20%.
And you've got resource utilization
But you
efficiency
still-
between, because Kenny or Danny, who's managing these environments, are managing it for 20 customers.
Exactly.
So the cost is divided. Okay, so I can see how that.
But within the organisation, you
Lots
still...
of factors, but it is not short term.
No.
No.
Well, I mean, if you're spinning up a new environment and you're spinning it up as a SaaS or a PaaS,
Yeah.
you still have the solution support, the solution owners.
Yeah.
You still have all of the lifecycle documentation, the change management. You still have all of the application
Correct.
management services are all still in house and all still have to do
Particularly
the-
in a regulated environment.
But then
of
you
course,
and then it's the SLA side that. So, for example, product A, you've built an environment. Okay, now we're moving on to project B, where we're spinning up connectors. So,
Yeah.
a multiple file transfer from brand A. But that brand A of one of the hosted clients on one of the clouds, the SLA finished at build, and it
Right.
wasn't agreed because the due diligence wasn't done.
Okay.
Of who's going to pay for the connectors once we want to connect legacy A to, or as is, to 2B?
Wow,
Yeah.
it sounds like
So-
Danny may have some real world
But that's literally gone. There's the works. There's the spanner. Thunk. Shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
And now we've gone 6 months where documentation can't be approved because we can't agree on the commercials. And that's a life. That's a use case that. I'm going through.
And when
Exactly.
you're sign, so when you
Whereas
sign into
in house,
yeah.
you do it in house because there's no security measures going outside.
Correct.
And you have the flexibility to flex the timelines. Whereas when you're bound by contract to an external,
No.
God
So-
help you in finance.
Exactly.
Right?
See, it is not easy business. It is not easy, but the results that it can give, provided the implementation is right, which is why I say the new due diligence and strategy is very important.
I get it.
But the benefit so far is the reduction of 60% of headcount cost-wise.
One of them,
Yeah.
one of the benefits. Long term, there are, for example, you own a lot of infrastructure in your data center.
Yeah.
There is life cycle spend.
Sure.
There
Oh,
is
no,
life
Yeah, you got
cycle
your
spend.
capex,
but-
opex.
I mean,
yeah.
Capex and
you-
opex.
Yeah.
Both reduce.
We're mostly familiar with trading capex for OPEX. I mean, you're essentially giving the problem to somebody else. But you're giving the problem to somebody else that's their business. So it makes, if you're in pharma or manufacturing, your business is manufacturing or pharmaceuticals. If your business is in
Exactly.
hosting, it's very clear. There are clear delineation and responsibilities.
True.
What you do get is a dilution in the workforce. That's not always
Not
good because
Not when you're going back to on-prem and you need to bring them back in again. So I'm just playing devil's advocate.
So it is a dilution of workflows from a number perspective, but not from a quality perspective.
Right.
So you can have people who know the technology, who know the strategy, but there are no, for example, the number of L1s you have may reduce because that work is being done by the cloud provider for you, but you can drive your own strategy.
Here's a Sri challenge, Sri, right? A challenge, Sri.
Go on, donkey.
Yeah, try that again. There's a challenge here, Sri. If you reduce your workforce and you have an elevation in your demand for new projects, and prior to any of this cloud stuff, you had the workforce available to adapt to that, yeehaw. If you've reduced your workforce because you've now adopted all this efficiency in the cloud, you either can't do what you plan to do, or you're dependent on your third-party supplier. Therefore, your costs go up.
It's
And
the
so you-
depend-
so
it's
you-
the dependency on
So you
the
shift your agility away from your immediate workforce who are on the payroll and committed and bought in. And it's not to say that your third party is not bought in, but they're not
Well,
as
no,
bought
mate.
in as they would be.
If I like Kenny's in head of the, he's the head of the VM solution. Kenny, can you spin me up 2 machines on chat? Sure, no problem. Have you got an RSC raise for it? We'll
Yeah.
do when we go to QA.
Yeah.
Now you've got to raise a support case, and there's an SLA of 5 days.
So,
But I want
Or
my machine now. I mean, all we're doing is being devil's advocate.
sorry, mate. You might ask for 10,000 yesterday. You've got none.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's a
Exactly,
commercial.
you've got-
I mean,
yeah.
there's a commercial. I mean, I'm not
It's all
suggesting
down to
that.
the commercial side. Of
Well,
course,
well, exactly. But I think you move from a level of agility in the team to and it. We've been here. We've been here before when separation happens, however it happens, either by acquisition or divestment. On the Friday, and you know who I'm talking about. Everyone's a colleague. On the Monday.
Right, you're going to have to bleep it out.
There was somebody said to me, on Friday you're all inside the tent. On Monday somebody's outside the tent pissing in and you're pissing out. It's the best definition of how it can. I mean, it's horribly wrong.
I thought it was Thursday when I was coming down here because my fucking head exploded. I'm like, yesterday we were voted the best, and literally hit 5 o'clock, and I'm like,
no,
what
exactly.
do we do now? What do we do? Has anyone got a cord?
Yeah, right, exactly. So there's a multitude of ways of explaining how these things go down. Yes, I get the cost benefits. Yes, I get the capability benefits. But the people benefits are short-lived.
Short-lived.
Because your skills move away from what, as Danny and I, project managers, we can't call upon them as readily as we could. Business managers, directors can't depend on it because it depends on the third party having the resource available. So we step away from having good people, good to go, do it. Yeah, Danny, don't worry about it. I'll do it tomorrow. And having that relationship,
sure.
and then in favour of cost benefits, which cost benefits are short lived. I never fully bought in. I'm never
so
fully
we've had
bought in.
scalability. We've had a reduction or an improvement in cost by reducing capex and opex. What else?
Security.
Okay, this is a good one.
So let's have this.
Yeah.
Security could improve. Why? Because, for example, a pharma organization, you mentioned its core competence is pharma. A financial organization core competence is finance. But the cloud service providers are there to, technology guys. So they have an extra layer of security. So it can help you with more security. Now the problem, it is not as easy because there are two parties involved here. So their role ends where their infrastructure is. But when you manage your data, you are still there. You still have to do your piece of security.
Well, of course, because the data is leaving the organization, going onto the internet, and is coming back into another data center. So the biggest security risk is what we had governed, managed, secure, bolted down firewall, powered out before, is now leaving. Ports are opened. It's going into the world wide web.
Correct. But look at it as a real world example, right? There are the ransomware attacks of the world. So a small enterprise, a 5,000 people enterprise or a 10,000 people enterprise cannot have so many resources, cannot have so many security professionals to safeguard them.
Good one.
Good one.
They're getting levels of security that you'd normally associate on an enterprise.
It's a well-known example of between their early days and being smaller on the path to being enterprise. That's the kind of mecca of where the opportunity is to secure. So exactly. I kind of get that. In the meantime, fuckface has woken up.
We'll cut that bit out.
Hang on, we're going to get a question about cloud separation from Terence.
Oh, here we go.
Actually, my question was around security, but it's not, security from the user's point of view. It's from the perception of customers, who want to go to cloud but don't feel confident about putting their data on a cloud environment. And that's been the biggest issue for people like Amazon who are offering these cloud services. Is how do we ensure the clients that their data is safe?
Correct.
Can I? So you can have that.
Yeah.
Data encryption, right? Data encryption is one way how it can be done. Then there can be something like DLP and so on and so forth. But
DLP, data loss prevention. No,
exactly. But having said that, there are still organizations who believe in this, and maybe rightly so, I don't know, but their highly secure financial data, they keep in their own premise. And they
keep it on-prem,
and they keep in their own servers and so on. And whatever data is less critical for them, that they keep somewhere else, on the cloud and so on. But with the technological advance in cloud and so on, I don't think it is insecure in the cloud, because all these service providers have more layers of security than a traditional company can have.
But if
No,
you are a
no,
large enterprise,
well,
you can afford to lock it down yourself.
Oh, true, but Sri, that's a bold statement. Let's look at the historic incidents of unsecured S3 buckets, which is Google's storage buckets. The number of cybersecurity
And
events.
they're not buckets.
They're not buckets. They're storage. Microsoft call them blobs. Why would you do that? So yes, I get that there is better security around. It requires enforcement, and a lot of these vendors have said, "Well, Danny's a customer. He didn't excuse my French. He didn't enforce this. It's on him." No, and it's changed a lot, particularly in Office 365. They've now said, or are saying, because I have a tenant, saying we will enforce these attributes, and you can opt out, but you're in by default.
Correct.
And that makes me more secure, which I've always said, and Google have done it. If you want something, you have to turn it on. It's off by default.
Yeah.
But historically, particularly around storage, it was always open by default, and that was really, really wrong. The vendors would say, let's leave it to the customer to decide. No,
I mean, you can understand with web-based services, and a lot of applications these days are web-based. I get that because you have to traverse the web to get to it.
Yes,
but when you're talking HR, finance, authentication, Active Directory, identity access management, that should be in house, but they're not. Everything's leaving the organisation, which we understand. Yeah. We get it. It's our job to do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you think, shit, that's a lot of trust, regardless of how much you're locked down.
And from my recent assignment, coming from something in the OT world called the Purge model, we can put a link to that. But forget
so when you break
that.
into people's houses after midnight.
No, but it is.
That's the purge.
It's more purge, not purging. Although to be fair, I have to say, I want to purge some people. This takes it about what's called security zones. Mm-hmm. So you can consider the on-prem as one security zone, and or actually you got multiple security zones internally, or whatever it might be. Then you have another security zone up to the public internet, and probably multiple. Every time you traverse a security zone, you should think about what you want traversing that security zone.
And that comes down to
authentication traffic,
due diligence.
Is it is it photos? Is it ID? Is it
attack vectors? Also,
exactly.
all that kind of stuff, because you expose yourself. Yeah. And as soon as you zone up all the stuff from wherever it might be, it becomes very clear the risk position that you must protect.
Correct.
Right, I've got a good one for Sri, because as IT director in your role doing cloud transformations, this will affect you and your answer. Is how do you effectively and smoothly move from on-prem to a hybrid solution without impacting daily operations?
So that's a very good question, and
I haven't got a clue.
Not just a pretty face. That's why I asked it.
Like I mentioned,
not even a pretty face.
I mentioned, many organizations do it in a knee-jerk way, which is when it leads to a lot of incidents, lot of breakage, and so on and so forth. So which is why there should be proper testing. Why? Because each environment has its own different network, has its own firewalls, and has its own perimeters, and so on and so forth. It is not that you remove your server from A environment and put it to B and it will work. No, it will not.
No, I wish.
I wish.
Oi, what?
I wish. You
can't
throw it over the fence.
Exactly.
So, there needs to be proper testing, proper planning, and then comes the phase of implementation. Mm-hmm. In the testing phase also, what people generally do is that if you have 100 servers, you just test on one and leave it at that. But like you mentioned, there are multiple zones. You need to see
zoning. I mean, sorry, Sri, but zoning became incredibly important in what I was doing before. Yeah. It's not so apparent in the IT world, particularly in the OT world. It's part of their everyday job. As soon as you move from an environment into another one, whatever it might be, you have to be very mindful about what traverses each.
Correct.
And I was schooled for that for a year.
In fact, it is going from OT to other worlds also. While it is popular in OT, in the manufacturing zone, we are also doing it in finance. So.
And do you know what? I think we should do it all the more.
Across.
Absolutely.
Across.
I mean, if you bring down the stock exchange, you're in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah. Across. Banks are also doing it. Banks are doing it. Financial firms are doing it. Technology firms are also doing it.
Security zones are basically segregated environments inside of which have
Network
particularly
segmentation.
Network. Perfect, Sri. Of course, that's why you're here.
So segmentation and micro-segmentation can be done, but not going into details. But segmentation is...
We have the means by way of a sponsor to do micro-segmentation if so we choose.
Oh, yeah, on that point, I forgot.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to Anthony Locke. Love you, brother. He's a.k.a. The Watchman. You do know Tismore wears fancy watches. I'll put something in the link. You won't win one. Here's a question for you, and it's one of the last ones we're going to have. What would be, to you, in your position, for the future, what would be the ideal scenario that you would like to see in an organisation where everything you've got...
Everything's efficient, secure, cost affordable.
What's I mean, it might not exist, but what would you like to see?
So for me, the best answer would be hybrid.
Yeah.
The best answer would be to have more than one service provider.
I agree.
For example, 2, and also have some infrastructure applications on-prem.
Yes,
totally agree.
So that I can play.
Totally agree. There are certain things, as we've already said, you've got your costs, you've got your CapEx, your OpEx, but you've got your data governance, and you've got your crown jewels.
I was going to say your CJs need to be
data,
off.
People's
they
data.
just need to be off the internet.
Yeah.
They have to be in heavily segregated security zones, and
that's why they're crown jewels in a safe.
Exactly.
A safe is on premise.
Yeah, absolutely,
Totally
and be
agree
able
with
to
you.
segment that.
And if Google are going, fuck this, and skipping back to building their own data centers, then there's got to be something.
Or if they have a
said.
change in policy, you're fucked. Sorry.
So Kenny, I'll let you have the last say.
Yeah, sorry, fascinating conversation. I mean, a multitude.
Piper Alpha.
Sorry, he's woke up. Sorry, starting again.
No. When you talk about on-prem and on cloud, and there's got to be a hybrid solution, then it kind of suggests that you don't really trust the cloud.
He's got an issue with it, hasn't he?
So you still want to have something on-prem.
No.
Why is that then?
It is in fact, I mean, not that I don't trust, then I wouldn't go, but I want to make the best of all environments for me.
And surely a hefty dose of paranoia is good.
Well, I mean, the question was to Sri, what would be his ideal environment?
Sure.
You know, you have seen, do you remember when we were all working in the same organisation, it was outsourcing.
Yeah.
So everyone outsourced, everybody left the organisation, and now it's going back to having it on-premise.
And so when we talk about hybrid, you mean a little bit of this cloud, and a little bit of that cloud, and a little bit on-prem, right?
Yeah.
And you can see a natural divide between app consumption, infrastructure consumption, and
control, data governance,
and crown jewels. So that if God forbid the Mecca, the world is owned, you can ring fence and security zone.
Exactly. So I as an organization can play around well. So, that gives me a lot of control than one of these models if I choose one.
There are just certain things that are left sacred that you should keep.
No, of course. I think
exactly.
I mean, I'm seeing all of it go, and now we're getting. Well, we should reel some of this back in, and
so,
there are certain things that you need to know that you've got.
The advent of dump the capex, give us the opex is all gone
because
you lose control of security.
Yeah. There was
in
a
fact,
film,
organizations are coming back from 100% to 70, 80% and so on.
I mean, you see these, you see in films now that due to cyber attacks, and we've talked a lot about it, is that you now see rooms full of people with typewriters, making notes on paper.
And send them by courier pigeons. I mean, they were like secure as they got, right?
You get Winston Churchill
unless you
kidnap a pigeon from the dead.
Kidnap a pigeon.
Oh, yeah.
Wish we don't go back to the typewriter. But
Got it.
I'm out of paper, you bastard.
Sri, listen, we're going to wind this up.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend, for the
Thank you
debate.
for coming on the show. And just as we always do, thank you again to extelligence.com. Please post your remarks, send us a request. If you want someone to come on the show, you should see our video in facility if you can't make it.
Behind the cameras. We've got new video in facilities if you want to join us.
Like and subscribe, and we'll bring Sri back and see how much skipping he's done for the next time.
Oh, yeah.
It's good night from us.
And a good night from me. See you next time.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Thank you.